Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the L2 Construction Series platform. It's day 14. Earlier this morning, we have done a discussion on CIPA topic, and it was very well received. We had about 400 participants this morning at 11 o'clock. And as of now, for this session, we have more than 200 audience already as of this time. And as usual, the number will continue to rise in the next 10 minutes or so. Now, today, we have three special guests, and all of them are very well known in their own practices. We have architect Steven Thang Boon An. We have engineer Dr. Wong Fook Keong and surveyor Dr. Lian. They are, to me, are the eagles in their respective professions, very well known, have been in the market, in the construction industry for many years. And they have established their names. And I believe that those who are here today, most of them would know or would have heard about these names before. Now, that's why we are very lucky to have them with us today. Now, the flow for the session for the day is this. We will ask each of our guests to briefly introduce themselves, even though they are already known in the market, for the benefit of those who have not heard about their name or do not know of them. After which, my host partner, Hong Kit, will take the mic and question the three special guests. And halfway through, I will be taking over to question them as well. And when that's finished, I will then take questions from the audience. If any audience, you have some burning question or pressing issues that you would like to ask any of our special guests today, do post it at the chat group. If I can capture it, I will then post it to the special guests to answer your question. All right, don't miss this opportunity. These people are very busy people. It's also very rare that we will be able to gather the three prominent people from their respective industries to be on our platform today. Now, there's one thing I have to clarify and emphasize as well, that the questions that both Hong Kit and I have prepared for these three guests have not actually relate to any of our special guests today. So they do not actually know what we are going to ask of them. Why we want to do that? Because we want their honest and spontaneous answers. We want to test what their real feelings about the questions and the issues that we're going to raise for them. So without further ado, can I first invite architect Steven to briefly introduce himself? Steven, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear. And can you, introduce yourself briefly to the audience?
Okay, my name is architect Steven Thang Boon An. I'm in a practice, small practice. I spend a lot of time now doing expert witness work, very courts and so forth in all tribunals. So I also do part of the PAM contract review panel, which I chair actually. So hopefully today I can help out in these questions. Thank you.
How about Engineer Wong?
Hello, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Dr. Wong Fook Keong. I'm a civil and structural engineering consultant. I've been in practice for over 30 years. I'm a chartered arbitrator. I do adjudication work as well, so I'm exposed to legal matters and claims. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wong. Your turn, Surveyor Ong.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My previous life, I was the senior partner with Davis Langdon Asia, JUVM. But I retired in 2010. Since my retirement, I took on the role as the president of RICS. In 2011, I was the first non-British to be the president. But having done that, I continued with the profession despite my retirement. I was the chair of the standard setting committee for the International Cost Measurement Standard, ICMS. We have published the first edition of the standard, which has been rolled out globally in 2017. That set as a benchmark for reporting on construction costs. And in 2019, because of the requirements from the industry, we have introduced a second edition, which incorporated the life cycle costing. So that's what I did for the profession. And I pick up a few arbitration and adjudication cases just to keep myself busy. So I'm glad to see you all today.
Thank you, Surveyor Ong.
Thank you, Architect Steven, Engineer Wong, and Surveyor Ong. Good afternoon. It is our honor to have your presence on L2 platform today. Okay, my first question is this. We all know that the consultants, while acting as an assessor, valuer, or certifier under a building contract, are required to act independently and impartially. Yet, in reality, they are being paid by the employer, and they will no doubt have employers' best interests in mind. How then do the consultants handle the role of being an agent of the employer, as well as being a referee governing the relationship between employer and contractors? Perhaps Architect Steven, you want to start first?
Thank you, Onki. Yes, I think that's the very clear-cut role that the architects should do in the administration of the contract, that he has to be neutral, despite being paid by the employer. However, we do receive some complaints from parties that saying that architects are quite being biased. Now, sometimes I believe that because of the way some contracts are drafted and the documentations are provided, so there are some incomplete things that so the architect sometimes have to defend his work and also the contract. So then, because of uneasiness on the other party who may not agreeable, so obviously some grievances are brought up in that manner, and the view of that the architects are being biased on that part. So yes, that is very common way of looking to it. Thank you.
Architect Steven, then how would an architect handle with this perception?
The architect best is to, I always encourage the architects to have a being transparent and being open up to both parties in the execution of the, or rather the administration of the contract, and not being just being sided. And being transparent is very important, so that they can see that you are a man that with integrity. So that is important.
Okay,
thank you.
Transparency. Thank you, Architect Steven. Engineer Wong, do you want to give us your view?
Oh, yes. Okay, it's a privilege to consultants that the industry has accepted the roles of the professionals to administer the contract between, for example, the developer and the contractor. Now, that doesn't mean that consultants will have to play the role in defense of everything the developer does or want. The way we consultants act is to protect the contract, is to administer the contract as best and as impartially as we can. Now that's actually what is the topic today. So I would say that as far as consultants are concerned, the motivation factor is the most important. We are motivated to look after the contract rather than what has been surmised, that we are actually at all times to be on the developer side. Thank you.
So I think your point is stay motivated to protect the contract.
I would say it's motivation. See, every professional has motivation, and every issue will be dealt with based on what is the motivation, what's the objective, and so on. So to me, there's no motivation for a professional consultant to lose out on integrity when he starts administrating a contract. There must be motivation. There must be an objective in doing that. Thank you.
Thank you, Engineer Wong. Surveyor Ong, would you like to share the view with the audience, please?
Yes, personally, I feel that the consultants, in fact, all parties to the contract, we are to serve our common interests in the interests, not of any party, but in the interest of the project. And I believe the parties, the employer and the contractor, when they enter into a contract, they are bound by the terms of the contract, and consultants, we are to administer and the contract in accordance to the provisions of the contract. That's what the architect does. That's what the quantity surveyor does. We value in accordance to the provisions of the contract. And now there are situations when the project is at risk. I remember in 1997 during the Asian financial crisis, where the contract does not stipulate anything about compensation for materials, the increase in materials in price. And so what do? And you can go on the contract and say, you know, we insist the contractor to complete the job no matter what, but the contract just couldn't finish the job. And so we come to a situation where you just have to talk sense out of everyone, including the employer, to say, you want the project to be at jeopardized, or you want to continue to see a completion of the project. And so I believe in many situations like that, we come to a common sense solution where we find sometimes we pay extra payment in order for contractor to proceed with and complete the job. So I think in a lot of situations, it's not so much of you know, taking side on whichever party. And I think a good consultant would normally have the interest of the project first. To see, you want to see the completion, successful completion in accordance to originally planned by the developer and the consultants, and to see to its completion within the shortest time, within the budget, and so on. I think that's how my view is.
Thank you, Surveyor Ong. So it's about common interest and common sense. However, the general perception of the market, of the construction industry, I would say, seems to be otherwise. Why do you think? Why do you think that gives rise to this perception that the consultants are being biased, protecting the employer's interest?
I feel that sometimes when there's a lack of decision, I think that's where consultants, we ourselves do not know which direction we should take. And therefore we often are, you know, we are being told, you know, by the opinions or by the directions of our client. That's why it would appear that the consultants are taking side, you know, we are only taking side because we feel that at the end of the day, they are the one who pay our fees. But I think that is a wrong thing to do. I think as a consultant, sometimes we need to be bold enough to confront the situation and find a solution that is, you know, that is win-win for all parties, rather than try to create a situation where we only take one particular side. I know there are a lot of projects that suffers just because of that attitude adopted by consultants.
Thank you, Surveyor Ong. Speaking about direction, I think the direction of the project should be dictated by the contract on administrator, which is the architect. So you say the lack of direction. I would like to put the question to Architect Steven. Architect Steven, do you agree that at times the project would be lacking of direction? And is it not the architect's role to dictate the direction rather than the employer?
I think we need to look at the whole thing, the whole spectrum, how these things initiated, the whole project initiated, what is required, and whether the brief given is correct or not, whether it's detailed enough for the architect to move on to complete his design and then go on to contract. Now, if it fails to capture the desire of the employer, then it will create problems during the contract because this is not what he wants. So the directions given by the employer must be very clear. Then the architect will take the instructions and then again, it will put it into his directions to the contractor, and the contractor will take these directions and move on. Yes, directions are very important and it should be very as much detail as possible. no one should take advantage of this and hide it, and later on you bring it up, you know, and hopefully there's an advantage to it. I think that's a very wrong thing to do. So direction, yes, is very, very important. Thank you.
Thank you, Architect Steven. I'll move on to my second question now. So, okay, in the Malaysian construction projects context, it is often said that the employer would exert pressure on the consultants to make unfair determination or assessment against the contractor. Things such as under certification, withholding of certificates, under evaluation of extension of time and loss and expense. Is this true? My question is this true, Architect Steven? Perhaps?
Okay. Yes, I do come across a few cases of these things well, it is a problem, I think, in the industry. These things, how much have been verified and how much work and all. So if it's just the architect who does the certification for small jobs like bungalow, yes, there are a lot of dispute on that part because about the percentage that have been work done, especially on the lump sum contract. On a larger scale, at least there's a QS to verify the amount of work done, but then it comes down to the payment part. So whether the consultant is protecting or biased towards the employer, sometimes I do find it does. Sad to say, but it's a very small percentage of these people actually. Not all are like. Luckily, it's only a very, very small percentage. I don't know what's what they have in mind to do so, but we shouldn't because these things will accumulate towards the end, and it's very clear that things are not done very clear, not very done properly, I would say. Thank you.
Thank you, Architect Steven. Engineer Wong, do you think it is true?
Yes and no. Now, the reality is that in our industry, the most important thing is money. And money comes from the pocket of the developers. Now, it's not wrong for developers to make sure that if they do not have to pay, they do not pay. And it is the responsibility of the consultants to make sure that if there's no need for any payment to be made out of any claims, then that is made clear. But the problem actually is this. The reality is that whenever a claim comes in, the consultant will be given the task of looking at the claim, and we do have building contracts which are not so easily understood. They're so complex, and every claim is different and unique. It is not easy for consultants to assess the claims, and that is the reason why a lot of consultants who are not so adept at evaluating claims will have problems. Not that they are purposely delaying their decisions, it's just that sometimes they do not even know how to look at the problem. And the worst thing is that developers nowadays have very well equipped contracts personnel. They spend all the time on contracts, on trying to deny claims from contractors. Not wrong, they were employed to do exactly that. And these are the people which at times are more adept at the claim situation, and many consultants have been bullied. And it's not that the consultants are not ethical. Sometimes the consultants are overpowered by these people because their logic seems to overrule what the consultants think is correct. And maybe at the end of the discussions with the developers people, the consultants themselves are convinced that what the developers people are saying is correct. So it is just the situation at the moment. I think the generalization that consultants are purposely doing this is wrong. One has to look at the problem by wearing the shoes of the consultants and knowing how difficult it is for consultants to act when the claim comes in. Thank you.
Engineer Meng, so you are saying there's a matter of a competency disparity between employer and the consultant.
Question is to me, isn't it?
Yeah, Engineer Wong.
I would say engineers and architects and QSs are, by and large, very competent. But each and every one of us have a different level of experience. Claims per se is a very complex issue. Consultants in general are not that well trained and exposed to contract matters, claims especially. I was listening to what Dr. Nasim was saying. Our contract forms that we have been given, that they are so complex that it would take a doctorate degree for someone to really understand, really do a degree, a doctorate degree in claims and contracts to really understand the problem. So it's a matter of gaining experience, gaining exposures. And I would say by and large, perhaps by 2030, we will all be very well versed in the contracts. And perhaps this sort of accusations will meet an early death. Thank you.
Thank you, Engineer Wong. Surveyor Ong, can we have your view, please? Is it true?
Well, to answer straight, the question is true, but not prevalent. I think thankfully we have issues like, some client want to exert pressure on the consultant to change the certificate or even valuation of variations and so on for their own purpose. And in my own experience, I rarely come across it. If I do come across, or if one of my staff come back and say the client wants to, or the project manager wants to change, I would normally ask the question why, and I will confront that and explain that to the client. So we will take some issues with the client if that is coming unreasonably from the client. But unfortunately, if some of our consultants out there who are perhaps who are so dependent on that particular client, and they are in a way hand in glove with the client, and I think that is unfortunate. But thankfully, from my own experience, there are not many incidences like that. Thank you.
Thank you, Surveyor Ong. I shall move on now to the third question. It has been suggested that one either has integrity or not. No such thing as a little integrity. So what do you think about this? In reality, can the consultants uphold absolute integrity at all times? Architect Steven, would you want to take first?
Thank you. I think this is a very important question of integrity. In fact, if you look at our Architects Act, it's very clear that we should exercise integrity at all times during the administration of a contract or even working with the client. So there's no question about that. But how much we need to exercise is there are people who actually wants to they want to assist the client out. I think one of the biggest word we use is I found is out of fear and also fear of losing jobs. I think that's one of the biggest problem the industry, or rather some of the consultants are facing. This is something that we need to address. This thing. The institutions are all actually working very hard to emphasize this integrity, but there will be one or two who otherwise. So there's no doubt about integrity. It must be exercised. Thank you.
Yes, Architect Steven, yes, there's no doubt about integrity, but do you think, realistically speaking, can the consultants uphold absolute integrity and at all times?
Whether they can, it's a very difficult question actually. The thing is, the Act says that you must. There's no question about that.
There's no question.
Yeah, but there are some handful of them that will just how we say that, just go around it, so that they become more favorable to the clients. in their appointment. So those are, we can't see. It's only a small numbers, but we try to tell them, look, don't do this.
Of course.
Hopefully it will not go beyond that. Thank you.
Thank you, Architect Steven. Engineer Wong?
Well, my answer is a straight no. There's no such thing as absolute integrity. You can only find that in God. Now we are all in the same boat. We are all in the same boat. We have a project to look after. We have a project to complete to the best of our ability. That goes for every participant of the construction project. One cannot expect everyone to hold on to integrity where things are coming in quick and fast, and decisions have to be made, sometimes on the spot and so on. And I think that the most important thing for consultants to do is to learn to listen. Listen to everybody. Listen to everything that comes in with regards to any of the claims. Then take time to ponder, to consider, and then do his very best with whatever integrity he has. There is no such thing as absolute integrity, as far as I'm concerned. But if consultants do that, there's no requirement that, oh, everybody must be absolutely integral. Take an oath and say, oh, I will not lie or whatever. I mean, who hasn't sinned should throw the first stone, isn't it? That's what Jesus said. No, there's no absolute integrity. There will be bits and pieces or there are times when a consultant may step out of line, but let's hope, and I can see that is far, few, and in between. Most consultants have integrity. Thank you.
Thank you, Engineer Wong. Surveyor Ong?
Yeah,
absolute integrity.
I have to make 3 points on this. Firstly, I think as all professionals, we all sign up to our professional ethics, our professional code of conduct. And I think it's given in that way. So I will agree that if you call yourself a professional, whether it's architect, engineers, or quantity surveyors, or whatever profession you hold, you sign up to uphold at least your ethical, your moral values, to ensure that you have the the highest of the those moral. And when we talk about integrity, what are we talking about? It's all about honesty. It's all about dependability. It's all about trustworthiness. It's all about you not taking advantage of situation to serve your own gain, your own purpose. So, particularly when we handle clients' money, you have to hold on with integrity in that sense that you would not take advantage of the situation and create a opportunity for yourself. So these are what we mean by integrity. Now, answering in response to what Dr. Wong said earlier on, there's no absolute integrity. Yes, we all can measure by our own standard. There's no absolute. But I think there must be an integrity. There must be a value that's set as a benchmark for us to adhere to. If all we try to achieve, yes, we all are human beings, we fall. But it doesn't mean that because of we fall, we are allowed to commit that kind of mistake over and over again. And that's why we must have professional code within the institution to ensure that our members will always comply and adhere to as closely as possible, and possibly adhere to it by the book, And so that is what we want to achieve. And so I think in the industry, I agree that this is a situation that we talk about it all the time because of the temptations that we face every day, and the pressures that we are being confronted with every day. But we must always go back to the benchmark, go back to that standard that we all adhere to when we sign up, to receive our IR or AR or SR. That's what we need to maintain. I think that's what my view is.
Thank you, Surveyor Ong. I will now pass the mic to my host partner, Loon, to continue.
Thank you, Hongkit. It has been quite a tense 20 minutes of grilling by Hongkit, and I find that some difficult questions have been posed to our special guest today. Well, I do not know whether I'll be upping the ante, but there is one issue that I really want to deal with is that, there has been a perception that it happens to all profession, in the consultants field, that they have not been acting impartially. Most of the times they are siding with the employers because they are the paymaster, and they probably be promised of future projects as well, so that they will be acting accordingly, somehow tuned in favor of the employers. Now, the thing is that we recognize that this group of people exists in the construction industry, and they have been here. They have not been weeded out as well. So the perception is that something to do with the disciplinary procedure being implemented in your profession, whether it be architect, QS, or engineer. And, if it had been tightened up, all these people would eventually be weeded out of their of their profession. And what do you think about this? Can we start with perhaps Surveyor Ong? Do you agree with this perception? Is because the professional body is not doing good enough in enhancing the disciplinary proceedings and actions against these unprofessional consultants in the market?
Yeah, I was a member of the board of Quantity Surveyor myself for 10 years. I know that often the board, the various professional have been entrusted to regulate as well as to monitor the conduct of the registered members. Now, the boards, the statutory boards normally act on complaints. And I know that there are many situations like this where there are malpractices or there are impartiality or partiality being shown by the consultants in the administration of contract. And often these are not reported. Contractors who suffer or because of the partiality of the consultant, they normally do not take the matter up to the respective or unless it is really, really, really bad. Whether or not the board can unilaterally act on themselves, the answer is no, because the board are so busy with so many other things. And so what normally I find is that the board can only act based on complaints that has been filed by the complainant. And so unfortunately, these are very rare incoming. And I think contractors, if they feel that they are being victimized, they normally do not take this matter, or they don't know that there are provisions within the act for them to take the matter up to complain. But we seldom don't have this kind of thing. So my answer to your question, Loon, is that the board will act on complaints submitted by the members of the public. Thank you.
Yeah, but thanks, Surveyor Ong. I have also a related concern, which I heard from some of the contractors, is that the unwillingness to lodge a complaint is because they have this perception that the board would only protect their own people. You have a complaint about a quantity surveyor, they submit a complaint to the board of quantity surveyor, they will be protecting their own people because they themselves are quantity surveyors. They might also think that one day one person makes a complaint about me, I would also be the subject of a disciplinary proceeding. So that's why they have this kind of a perception. And do you think that this kind of perception is valid since you were a member of this disciplinary proceeding board member?
I don't think so, Loon. I think the board, for my tenure with the board of quantity surveyors, when a complaint is being made, normally the disciplinary board will act on that based on the complaint. Obviously, there must be evidence. There must be the complaint must be supported by evidence. So normally, if there are evidence being filed, I think the board will normally take the matter up. So that's what I know. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. What about you, Engineer Wong? In your engineering profession, what do you have got to say about these perceptions?
Well, okay, Loon, it's my opinion. I
Yes.
wouldn't think the board of engineers would take up any matter that is to deal with contracts. There are avenues and platforms for contractual disputes to be settled, right? The Board of Engineers would deal with malpractices, and I think the malpractices that the Board of Engineers are interested in is more towards design and defaults of the engineer in design and so on, but very, very little on contracts. Besides, wouldn't want to generalize. Engineers per se do not like to look at contracts if you can help it, you know. So that goes for the Board of Engineers as well, right? But I want to say something, you know, because you started off by saying engineers and so on, and architects and so on. There are groups of us that sort of acting without integrity and so on and so forth. We are not the only ones, all right? It happens in Malaysia. It happens everywhere in the world. I find most of the reported cases of such integrity problems from the United States and from the UK, more because they are more litigious society. So it is a universal problem. So it's not just in Malaysia. Malaysia has a different culture as well. We do not take things to court so easily. We just want to settle things if we can. It's the culture that we have here. So I would dispel that sort of myth that we do have a very special group of people who are always siding with the developers and so on. I think that is a wrong perception. Thank you.
What about you, Steven? You know, do you think that the disciplinary board in the architect profession is tight enough, you know, in order to ensure that this group of people do not exist or continue to exist in your architect profession?
Thank you, Wyland. This question, I think the Surveyor and the Dr. Wong has mentioned a lot regarding to the respective board. The architect board are also the same, but the important thing is that when the due process must be seen to be implemented, that both parties has a wherever they have a dispute to be looked at, supported by evidence. Now, what is important is that all the bodies, professional bodies, will not protect the consultant if there's evidence that he has wronged in his work or his integrity. Now, this is important because we need to have the we do not want to lose public confidence in us. So it's very important that we upkeep all these values and integrity. So well, most of the things that have been spoken by the two eminent speakers, so I concur with that.
Okay, thank you, Steven. Now I have a question to Surveyor Ong. Surveyor Ong.
Yes.
You know, you have ample of experience. You know, you retired in 2010. But when you were an engineer as the claim consultant, engaged by an employer, have you ever experienced a scenario or a situation whereby you were pressured, by the people who pays your fees, to do something that is against the principles of integrity? And how did you actually deal with that situation? Do you have a personal experience yourself? Can you actually relate, by telling us the story that you have encountered?
Well, attempt influence, yes. Pressured, no. So thankfully, from my over 40 years of experience in industry, that's because, number one, I think I do choose my own client. Okay, I know which are the client that I need to work for, which are clients that I don't need to work for. And so I think that helps a lot, to know where your client is coming from, whether they are genuine in the business, and so on. Now, when there are a situation, when the client themselves are facing a challenging situation, and they may be tempted to compromise certain things. For example, they may want us you to create a report to enhance the value so that they can go to the banks and get better funding and so on. We often tell the client what are the limits that we can go to. and we do not bow down to their what they demand. And so these are situations that often we need to use a lot of tact, a lot of convincing, but maintaining your own professionalism. And I think the client will ultimately appreciate where you are coming from. And I think this is where, when we talk about this conduct, this behavior, it's not just a one night or one day thing. It has to be over a period of time where you have demonstrated that you are trustworthy, you can be dependent on, and the moment you say your word, I think the client will often obey or will often listen to what you are to say. So in some situation, I think the client may come up with a strong word, they're asking you to influence you, but I think they often back off when you say there are limits, there are certain things that you cannot do. And there are one situation I can remember that we just tell the client, you can have the job back if you want to. That's all I can do for you. There's not much I can do. So I think the client over a period then would know where you're coming from. So when you establish that reputation, I think integrity comes with reputation as well. So when you establish that reputation, I think the client would often know where you're coming from. And I think when you say something, when you say a no to them, sometimes it's very hard to accept, but I think they ultimately will understand where you're coming from. Thank you.
Thank you, Surveyor Ong. How about Engineer Wong? Do you have any specific instance that you have encountered, and how did you deal with it? Any specific, very specific instance that you have encountered?
Okay, I've been practicing for over 30 years. Lately, they come far and few in between. When I was younger, much less experienced, they tend to start bullying because the clients, the developers know that you are green, you are raw, and like what the, Dr. Ong has said, when you have established yourself in the industry, your words will come out differently. The way you treat things will be known. The manner that you deal with problems will be known. And your clients will have to take a lot of your advice rather than just bulldoze their way through. So I think what is important is exposure and experience. It's a difficult subject. It's a difficult matter. The more experienced you are, the easier it is for the consultant to uphold the integrity and to stand the ground. It is difficult for less experienced people, and they will be less experienced people. We learn as we progress. So I would say, and I would agree with the panel members, the integrity is inbuilt in all professionals. We take oath, we swear that we have this integrity. How we develop and practice the integrity will be developed with time. And the more experience we have, the more exposure we have, the easier it is for professionals and consultants to uphold the integrity. Thank you.
Dr. Wong, I do agree with you. It sounds, quite logical that with more experience, then you can withstand the pressure and also temptation being put upon you by your paymaster. But, is it going to be a yardstick when the contractors look at who the consultants are and they see that the consultants are very young, then they, will have a high likelihood that they would be influenced by the employers than those consultants who are on board, who have long-standing experience?
Well, yes, like I was saying, money is actually the motivation, isn't it? So contractors will have people within their ranks who would be able to tell them, look, we can bully this consultant. This consultant acts like this. This consultant acts like that. I mean, we are all exposed to the market. The market knows us. The market knows what each and every consultant would do because they've experience with such consultants. Some consultants can be easily bullied. Some consultants are less experienced in certain matters. And because it's money, they will press, they will take advantage. I mean, you are a lawyer. You will do the same thing too, isn't it? Once you are given that unfair advantage. This is human. It happens. And it will continue to happen. Thank you.
I understand. Yeah. How about Stephen? Do you have any specific instance that you can share? Briefly.
I have one incident of many years ago, whereby it had to do with a contract where the employer, one of the very senior management level, asked me to remove a couple of items because it was a lump sum, so he was very uncomfortable with the pricing. So he asked me to take it off, and he will do it in a direct contract. So I said, no, you can't do that. He was very upset with me, and because I refused to abide by what he wants to do. I felt very comfortable after that. At first, he was very annoyed with me. He said, "Look, we have a lot more projects coming up, so you put a carrot in front of me." I still refuse to do that. And after a while, I thought about it. I feel very comfortable with it. I think at the end of the day, our integrity stays, and that we can sleep comfortably. That's very important. That we have carried out our conduct, our integrity as best as we could. So that's very important. Having done that, and then we progress on until now with this sort of what you call it, knowledge gain. I find that at least of the clients that I have now are very believe in you, that you are a man of integrity, and they want you to be on board. To exercise, to do their project, because they can rely on you and to execute it. So I think that's a very good thing, that the integrity helps us a lot in getting jobs as well. So that is my experience. Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot. The three special guests who have given their views on the questions. I have actually looked at the chat room to see whether there is any question from the audience. It looks like they have more comments than question. If you have the time, as a special guest, the audience has actually left numerous comments about what you all have said, and then check and see, and consider their comments if you like later. But before we end the session, I will have a lighter question to ask of you. You see, what happened is that to the many claim consultants that I've spoken with, they seem to be quite skeptical about the professionalism of consultants in Malaysia. We had a special guest who talked about the topic, and he was quite skeptical about the professionalism of consultants in Malaysia. Now, yes, as you can see in the construction industry, there is a proliferation of claim consultants entering the construction market in Malaysia. Do you see it as a boon or a bane for the construction industry in this sense? It acts as a check and balance, or is it supplementing what the consultants are doing or lacking in the market? How about the Stephen Thang? And do you want to start first?
Thanks. It is something that I find it very interesting. The claim consultant coming to the market now, and being involved with them in these disputes, tribunals and so forth, it opens up my eye in a certain manner, that we see things now that, oh, you can do it this way, there's claims coming this way. I think next time consultants should be more careful in administrating the contract. We didn't see this part of things that coming before. So I think that, it is good to have this claim consultant to come in and see that this thing, whether it's workable or not, but at least it helps us to see things differently there. So I think it's a good thing. Thank you.
What about you, Engineer Wong?
Well, Loon, I think in this country, we have a lot of checks and balances, right? Complaints that consultants will not deal with claims properly and whatnot. I mean, there are avenues for the complaints to be settled, to be looked into. There is arbitration and so on and so forth. So it is good that they do come in, because that will help to elevate the knowledge and the sort of awakeness of all the consultants. But I would look at it this way. If claims consultant continue to complain, it could mean a few things. That they do not know their job well, and they are failing in their claims, failing not at the level of the consultants, but maybe failing at arbitrations and at litigation. So look at it in another way, in that I would say claims consultants coming into the fray is good. But like all other professions, it's the motivation. Claims consultant motivation is the claim. Whatever they can claim, they will claim. So where's that integrity? So same goes with consultants, right? We are there not to resist the claims, but to guard the contract, to guard the project. So that is the motivation that consultants would have to maintain their integrity. So these are two different things. Thank you.
Okay, lastly, Surveyor Ong, do you have anything to say on this topic?
Yeah, on the issues of lack of professionalism, I think the answer is unfortunately yes. There are still issues within the industry where the fellow consultants are not really up to the mark. I've gone through several adjudication, and most of the issues have come about because of poor documentation and also poor administration. And if we are able to address these issues, consistently and regularly, I think we should focus on this issue about documentation, about understanding what the contracts are. And I think if all stakeholders, including especially those who are young, those new ones coming on board, if they are trained in the right way, I think that will help the industry to overcome some of these current issues. That we could have avoided a lot of disputes and avoid a lot of different contractual issues arising from this. So yes, I think there's still a lot of work need to be done in our industry, particularly in the area of training, in the area of raising up our competency. And I think if all parties continue to pay a little bit of effort into this, and I think it will greatly help our industry. Thank you.
Engineer Wong, do you have any final words for the audience?
My final word: consultants will want to maintain integrity at all times, and that's my position. We always try our best. Thank you.
All right, Stephen Thang, Architect Steven. Any final words for our audience?
Yes, we all consultants generally are always put forth our front on our integrity. We conduct as best as we can. Under circumstances, sometimes it's beyond what we can do. So sometimes because of this, we are being perceived that we are not doing our job properly. So rest assured that we are all doing as much as we can to maintain that neutrality in administrating a contract in our work. Thank you.
Thanks a lot to our special guests today, Architect Steven, Engineer Wong, and Surveyor Ong. For their time, for being interviewed on this very interesting topic about integrity. Difficult questions were posed to you, but you have demonstrated the best of your ability, to answer these questions. And it's also quite interesting to note that for an afternoon session, we have audienceship being maintained at 290 throughout the entire session, which is a good number, compared to other afternoon sessions that we have had. Congratulations to our 3 guests as well, because it shows that your influence in this market that draw such a large crowd, to attend this conference. Now, over to you, Hong Kit, to close the session.
Okay, Loon. Thanks, Architect Steven, Engineer Wong, and Surveyor Ong for their time. Even though it
you.
was spontaneous, pretty much unprepared, it turned out to be an interesting session. It allowed us to really go into the consultant's mind and pick their brain. I think in general, there are a lot of consultants out there would uphold integrity, protect the contracts like our three special guests here today. However, it cannot be denied that there are also bad apples who end up tarnishing the integrity and the overall image of the consultants. Let's hope this is just the minority. So yeah, thank you for joining us today. Tomorrow morning, we will be having our Q&A only session, which was supposed to be our wrap-up session, but now as MCO has extended, we are going to continue. Stay tuned for the updates on all our upcoming sessions. We are committed to bring interesting and informative session to our audience during the MCO. Please continue to support us. Thank you. See you tomorrow.
And also, if any of the audience here would like to hear any of our speakers to appear again on our forum, please do leave a message and we will then approach the appropriate speaker and special guest accordingly.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
See you
Yes.
again, Dr. Wong. See you again, Steven and Dr. Ong. See you again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ivan.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. See you again.
Bye-bye.